Hey friends, it's Joe from aFamilyFrenzy. Today I'm continuing my 4,000 miles for equity challenge, in which I'll be running and walking over 4,000 miles to raise awareness for systemic inequities experienced by marginalized people groups. For the past couple days I've been discussing the convergence of politics, race, and inequity, and today I want to pivot towards the convergence of politics, faith-based backgrounds, and the LGBTQIA plus community, and where there's often a tension and inequity in those spaces. For those of you who don't know, I do identify as a Christian, so I'm speaking from my faith context, but I want this dialogue to be accessible to people of that same context, of different faith backgrounds or lack thereof, as well as accessible to the LGBTQ community. So I'm really excited to see what kind of dialogue or discussion can come from this post. Where I want to start, often people in different faith backgrounds, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, can often feel discriminated against depending on where they live and if their faith is the majority or the minority. I mean, depending on what country you live, you could be killed if you're a Christian, or if you're a Muslim, or if you're of a different belief set. That feeling of discrimination is valid, and I don't want to underplay that. We might go there in another talk. But what I actually want to discuss is where aspects of faith cause us to have prejudices against members of the LGBTQIA plus community, and that causes us to act in a way that is discriminatory towards them, or we act differently towards them, and it really strips power and equity from that group, because we take our faith and we roll it into our politics, which then affects policies that marginalize people that don't identify as cisgendered. And cisgender just means that I believe that my orientation sexually matches my biological sex. So I identify as a male, and physically I'm a male. I saw something in the news yesterday that provoked this. Upon the first day of entering office, Joe Biden signed a whole bunch of executive orders, one of which was mandating that for different government applications, such as for the military, that gender-specific pronouns were added. So I believe the previous administration had it so it was only male or female. So you had to lock into a biological definition of gender. And he wanted to make it accessible for there to also have like they or them, or I think it was mixed gender was an option, just to provide opportunities for people to bring their whole selves and their whole identity into whatever government office they were applying for. This was received as a big win from the LGBTQIA plus community, but it received a lot of backlash from various faith-based organizations, as well as certain news networks, which I won't name. I watched a video of a certain news network pushing back on this and discussing the ignorance of it, and it was very discriminatory, and there's a lot of inflammatory language I won't repeat. Grieved me to see someone push back on that so much. I have a lot of friends in the LGBTQ community that I deeply love, and while I'm still working through scripture to understand where there's a place for them in or not in my faith, I know that biblically I'm called to have a proximity to them and to love them and to come alongside them. And if I see that there's something that's adding a disproportionate barrier or burden to that people group, I have a responsibility to walk alongside them and try to remove it, even if I don't fully agree with it. I don't see that compassion from different faith-based organizations. I don't see that compassion from a lot of politicians who are cisgendered white males who have never not identified as their biological sex. 40,000 LGBT youth between the ages of like 13 and 24 were interviewed, and basically if they found that no one in their life spoke to them with their preferred pronoun, that there's like a 24% likelihood that they had attempted suicide in the past. But if you look at that same bracket, if people use preferred pronouns, that suicide rate drops to 12%. That's like half. Pronouns do matter. They do impact people's lives. How would you feel if I didn't call you sir or madam or whatever your preferred preference is, or him or her when I'm talking? We have to modify our language, and it's as simple as just adding a bubble so someone can say, I'm, non-cisgendered. I prefer they or them. It's a courtesy. There's so much discrimination in this space, so much bias, because we feel the need to set the standard based on our understanding of truth for the whole world. And there are people that don't have the same lifestyle, the same beliefs as us, and we need to create access for them to also feel like they're seen and they're heard. If you want to talk more about this, I know this is a tender topic. I didn't feel like I could unpack it fully. Me and my wife do stream on Twitch. We stream under the name aFamilyFrenzy, so feel free to drop by. We do talk about the convergence of politics, the LGBTQ community, faith background, and we invite anyone from anywhere along that continuum to have open discussion or dialogue that's well moderated by myself. So I'll see you around.